Kakuri-san is an old game where people use their fingers to move on a board and try to talk to a fox ghost for answers to their question. But no one knows for sure if it's just a game or something more mystical. The story shifts to a little girl named Kohina Ikamatsu playing this game at a shrine. When she touches a letter on the board, the coin starts shaking, and a strange voice tells her she's invited something spooky. Suddenly, a guy with fox ears shows up at her door, out of breath. Kohina calmly locks the door, but the ghost still enters her room. Undeterred, Kohina threatens the ghost, who reveals himself as Kakuri-san, the fox spirit. In an unexpected twist, Kohina pokes the ghost's eyes, making him cry out. Then, Kakuri-san tries to playfully pinch Kohina's cheeks but is surprised to find she shows no emotion. Kakuri-san tells Kohina that most people are scared of him, but she responds by saying she's like a doll created with advanced technology. She also mentions that she doesn't show emotions because she thinks they're pointless. Later at dinner, Kakuri-san is surprised to see Kohina, a young child, eating junk food. He offers to cook 3 meals a day for her because he believes she needs a healthier diet. He tries to steer her away from the junk food, but Kohina insists on sticking to her usual snacks. During their conversation, Kakuri-san asks about Kohina's family, and she reveals that she doesn't have one and has been living alone for a long time. This makes Kakuri-san feel sad for her because he believes no child should be left alone without adult supervision. The next day, while Kakuri is taking a shower, Kohina once again summons him. She's frightened when she sees him in just a towel, and when he suggests they bathe together, she panics and calls the police. As a result, the police take Kakuri away, but he returns later and scolds Kohina for her actions. Afterward, Kakuri tries to find out why she summoned him. But instead of talking to him directly, Kohina turns to the internet for answers, which upsets Kakuri. He claims he's better than the internet, so Kohina starts asking him strange and impossible questions. However, when she asks about the weather, she catches Kakuri checking the internet for answers himself. Unfortunately, his laptop is broken, and Kohina teases him, saying that even the mighty Kakuri relies on technology. She then asks about his age, but since she has a lie detector, Kakuri refuses to answer because he can't lie anymore. Kohina then brings up the fact that Kakuri has no friends, which deeply saddens him. Meanwhile, a black dog transforms into a young boy and embarks on a quest to discover his destiny. Back at the apartment, Kakuri confides in Kohina, revealing that he used to be worshipped at a shrine where many people visited his altar daily. Sadly, both the shrine and his home were eventually destroyed over time. He fondly recalls Kohina's visits to his humble shrine and how he watched over her. In response, she humorously remarks that people like him are often called stalkers rather than guardian. The next day, when Kakuri enters the apartment, he finds Kohina lying on the floor. He rushes to her side, but Kohina insists that her battery has run out, while Kakuri believes she's just hungry. Subsequently, he gathers all her junk food to return it to the store, prompting Kohina to accuse him of being a monster for depriving her of her favorite snacks. Out of nowhere, she produces a lightsaber and starts playfully attacking Kakuri. Kakuri, fearing for his safety, flees as Kohina is determined to playfully remove his tail and ears. The day goes by, but Kakuri doesn't return. Kohina decides to restart the game in the hopes of seeing him again, but she's disappointed when there's no response. Loneliness gradually engulfs her life once more. Later, out of desperation and with tears in her eyes, Kohina tries the game once more. Suddenly, Kakuri reappears and warmly embraces her. He explains that he didn't return earlier because he wanted her to miss him. Then, Kakuri says that their time together won't be very long, but he still wants to be by her side until the day they must bid each other farewell. The following day, when Kohina gets back from school, Kakuri notices that she's not in good spirits. He realizes she needs to learn how to fit into society, so he offers to teach her how to live appropriately. Kohina, however, changes the topic by asking Kakuri for evidence to prove he's real. This strange question leaves Kakuri momentarily stunned. He tries his best to catch her attention and promises to teach her how to smile more. Later, he transforms into his fox form, which Kohina adores, and begins giving her lessons on smiling. The next day, on her way home from school, Kohina encounters a person in a costume who advises her to smile more. However, her smile is so unusual that it startles the costume wearer and others she meets. Meanwhile, Kakuri, who's outside, spots Kohina and they decide to walk home together. Kakuri reassures Kohina that he'll teach her everything she needs to know, including how to smile naturally, as it can't be forced. Kohina worries that if she can't learn, Kakuri might come to dislike her and leave her all alone. She makes a promise to him, letting go of her fears of loneliness. One rainy day, while Kohina is outside, she comes across a dog looking for a new home. As she approaches the dog, she suddenly encounters a young boy who excitedly declares that she's his new owner. Back at home, Kakuri is upset that Kohina has taken in this stranger. The boy introduces himself as Inugami, a dog spirit. Later, Inugami showcases his impressive skills by unlocking the door. Kakuri warns Kohina that Inugami may appear obedient but has a darker side and has caused harm to his previous owners, leading to their misfortune. Kohina becomes skeptical of Inugami, but when he promises her bowls of ramen, she quickly agrees to a contract with him. This leaves Kakuri puzzled, wondering how Inugami knows so much about Kohina and her favorite food. Inugami then reveals that he knows everything about her because he used to stalk her, which leaves Kakuri astonished. Inugami goes on to explain that he was a dog in a previous life, and everyone ignored him except for Kohina, who cared for him. This prompted him to learn everything about her. However, Inugami starts daydreaming about marrying Kohina, which prompts Kakuri to put a stop to his fantasy. Realizing that he can't allow Inugami to live in the same place as Kohina, Kakuri assigns him a room outside, and Inugami happily accepts, knowing that Kohina built it. Later, when Kohina is petting Kakuri in his fox form, Inugami transforms into his dog form and manages to grab her attention. Kohina starts affectionately squeezing Inugami, and Kakuri can't resist joining in because of his squishiness. However, when Kohina is about to sign a secret marriage form with Inugami, Kakuri intervenes and stops her. He punishes Inugami, but Inugami surprises everyone by transforming into a female version of himself, revealing that they are gender fluid. Since Kakuri doesn't want to leave Kohina alone with Inugami, Inugami suggests settling their differences with a deadly battle. Kakuri agrees, and Inugami brandishes guns while Kakuri uses a frying pan as his weapon. However, the fight is abruptly halted when Kohina starts petting a random cat, diverting their attention and ending the battle. Kakuri and Inugami get drunk and decide to put an end to their feud, but just as Kakuri extends his hand for a handshake, Inugami withdraws his offer to make amends, citing that Kakuri still stands in the way of his relationship with Kohina. With their new responsibilities, Kakuri takes charge of cooking nutritious meals for Kohina to ensure she grows up healthy. In contrast, Inugami's task is to fetch the morning newspaper, which leaves him with plenty of free time to nitpick Kakuri and find flaws in his duties. One day, when Kakuri calls out to Inugami but gets no response, he decides to search for him in Inugami's room. To his surprise, he discovers that the room is completely covered in pictures and dolls of Kohina. Later, Kohina tells Kakuri that they need to correct Inugami's behavior because he doesn't listen to her and does the opposite of her commands. She mentions finding a book at a bookstore about teaching dogs to behave, but Kakuri is skeptical since it's a guide for ordinary dogs. Kohina, however, believes it might help Inugami become more obedient. Meanwhile, Inugami, who's been eavesdropping, finds it rather absurd that a mere book could control him but becomes oddly intrigued by the thought, even entertaining fantasies of Kohina using it to assert dominance over him. The next day, as Kakuri heads to the supermarket, Kohina informs Inugami that they'll be going for daily walks together. His face lights up with excitement, and his tail wags vigorously at the prospect. They embark on these daily outings, relishing their time together. However, their enthusiasm dwindles as they quickly grow weary of the routine, leaving them in search of new hobbies. In an effort to share the responsibility, Kohina hands Inugami's leash to Kakuri and assigns him the task of accompanying Inugami on their daily walks. Late at night, Kakuri reflects on what might be holding Kohina back from fully accepting herself as a person rather than a doll. Determined to help her, he visits her room, only to discover it overrun by clones of Inugami, prompting Kakuri to take action and discipline them. Left alone at home, Kohina decides to indulge in her beloved ramen, a treat she can only enjoy when Kakuri isn't around. However, her private feast is abruptly interrupted when Kakuri enters the scene and prevents her from savoring her favorite meal. During the nighttime hours, Kakuri takes a stroll through the yard and stumbles upon Inugami burying something. Intrigued, he can't resist the urge to investigate and unearths a magazine titled How to Become Popular in Front of Girls. Meanwhile, Kohina approaches Inugami, requesting that he show kindness towards Kakuri. In response, Inugami claims that the concept of kindness is foreign to him. Kohina takes it upon herself to teach him this valuable trait. However, their conversation is abruptly interrupted when Kakuri enters the scene, chastising Inugami for resorting to underhanded tactics in an attempt to win Kohina's affection. On another occasion, Kohina decides to play the Kakuri-san game once more, this time with Inugami as her companion. Inadvertently, they summon a drunken man, leading to an unexpected and comical turn of events. The drunken man turns out to be a tanuki spirit named Shigaraki, who used to be Kakuri's roommate. Kakuri recalls him as someone who cared for no one and often tricked him into cooking his meals. Shigaraki is amazed to have stumbled upon the hereditary witch family. Kohina, hearing about the hereditary witch family for the first time, asks Kakuri for an explanation. He tells her that it's a family that employs animal spirits passed down from mother to child. Shigaraki, Having nowhere else to go, decides to live with them, but Kakuri is skeptical and finds it hard to trust a tanuki. However, Shigaraki deceives Kohina by offering her money, which later turns out to be yet another one of his tricks. The next day, Shigaraki approaches Kakuri, begging for a loan, but Kakuri declines, reminding him of a previous debt he hasn't repaid. Kakuri eventually lends Shigaraki some money, but it turns out that his coins are too old and hold no value. Later, Shigaraki sets out to explore the town, with Kohina and Kakuri closely following him. They soon discover him entering an orphanage and distributing candy to the children. Kakuri finds it hard to believe that Shigaraki could be this kind, so he approaches the lady in charge for an explanation. She reveals that Shigaraki regularly contributes to the orphanage and is the reason it's still operational. Confronted by Kakuri and Kohina, Shigaraki unveils a surprising truth. All the children at the orphanage are from the family he once troubled, implying that he's the source of their troubles. Kohina departs for school, leaving Kakuri to express his concerns about her potentially facing bullying due to her unique nature. As Kakuri watches from a tree, he observes Kohina eagerly interacting with other girls, causing him to reconsider his worries about her social life at school. Kakuri descends from the tree to meet Kohina, and she confides in him about her fascination with a boy named Yamamoto, whom she believes to be an alien. Kakuri and Inugami are surprised when they meet Yamamoto and suspect that he might have deceived them by posing as a normal Earthling. Soon after, some individuals arrive to pick up Yamamoto, explaining that they are taking him home after his lesson. Kohina mentions that Yamamoto's parents occasionally come to get him. However, Kakuri responds with a startling revelation, claiming that these individuals are part of an extraterrestrial dissecting group. Later, Shigaraki barges in on Kakuri and Inugami's argument, surprised to find a girl in the house. He begins teasing Inugami, who promptly rejects his advances. Meanwhile, at Kohina's school, a young girl named Jinko, known for her tsundere personality, attempts to gain Kohina's attention by placing flower vases on her chair daily. When Kohina fails to notice these gestures, Jinko becomes frustrated and confronts Kohina, accusing her of bullying through neglect. Kohina remembers seeing Jinko a year ago when she joined the school and realizes that Jinko was once a loner like herself, which is why she's so eager to befriend her. Jinko resorts to using various flowers to grab Kohina's attention, providing subtle signs, but Kohina, being the sleepyhead that she is, remains oblivious. The next day, as they hear about a new transfer student joining the school, Kohina vows not to change her reactions, as she doesn't really care about who it might be. To Kohina's surprise, it's revealed that Kakuri is the new transfer student, and Inugami introduces himself as another student as well. Kakuri explains that he enrolled in the school with the intention of helping Kohina make friends. However, Kohina points out that since his arrival, the gap between her and her classmates has only widened. This revelation forces Kakuri to reconsider his decision to join the school. One morning, when Kohina awakens from her sleep, she notices ghostly spirits floating around her house. Per Kakuri's advice, she refrains from getting close to them and avoids making eye contact. However, she decides to assist one of the injured ghost spirits against Kakuri's warnings. When Kakuri realizes that Kohina is getting closer to the spirit, he intervenes and banishes it. Nevertheless, the Cyclops spirit returns, and when it bites Kohina's hand and tastes her blood, it becomes fixated on her. Shigaraki arrives and offers to remove the Cyclops, but Kohina's persistence leads her to bribe him into keeping it a secret from Kakuri. Things seem fine until Kohina has a fall, and the Cyclops starts feeding on her blood. Shigaraki notices the Cyclops has developed a dangerous appetite for her blood and advises her to limit her time with it. He takes her away from the situation. However, later that night, while Kohina is asleep, the Cyclops sneaks into her room, poised to once again feast on her blood. Fortunately, Shigaraki, who had been expecting the creature, arrives and defeats the Cyclops. Regrettably, the Cyclops leaves a dying curse on him, resulting in a facial injury. To safeguard Kohina, as children typically shouldn't be able to see ghosts, Shigaraki takes away her ability to perceive them. When Kohina awakens, she informs everyone that she can no longer see any spirits, much to Kakuri's relief. Outside, she confides in Shigaraki, revealing that she had contemplated consuming the Cyclops. This revelation causes Shigaraki to express concern about her mental well-being. As Kakuri and Kohina are heading home, they cross paths with a young girl who becomes infatuated with Kakuri. She starts following him wherever he goes, causing him considerable embarrassment. Eventually, Kakuri decides to confront her, and she admits that she can't help but fall in love at first sight. Kakuri anticipates her confession but is taken aback when she suddenly points towards Kohina, believing she's an actual doll. This misunderstanding shocks Kakuri even more, especially when she proceeds to tell him that he isn't handsome. She introduces herself as Tama, revealing that she's a cat goddess in the guise of a human. Tama confesses her obsession with dolls and her love for collecting them. Tama starts doing strange things to Kohina, prompting Kakuri to clarify that Kohina is, in fact, a human, not a doll. Surprisingly, Kohina complicates matters by repeatedly insisting that she's a doll. A rivalry ensues over who gets to own Kohina, and Tama tells Kakuri that he's handsome in an unexpected turn of events. Kakuri finds himself somewhat impressed by Tama's charm, but Tama quickly diminishes his enthusiasm by attributing it to Kakuri's tendency to brag about his backstory. As the argument escalates, Inugami and Shigaraki arrive on the scene, with Inugami also joining the debate, eager to prove that he can take better care of Kohina. Tama, not to be outdone, showcases her two dolls, which creep Kakuri out even more. Eventually, after Tama departs and tensions settle, Kakuri realizes that Kohina is completely unresponsive. Inugami then discloses that Kohina is merely undergoing training to become a shubo. Later, Shigaraki brings her favorite meal, ramen, in an attempt to divert her attention, but she remains unresponsive. Concerned, they examine her and realize that they've been tricked by Tama. Determined to free Kohina, they set out on a mission. Meanwhile, Tama begins calling Kohina by a different name in her cafe and tries to convince her that she's her true master. Outside the cafe, Kakuri and the others attempt to enter, only to discover that a mysterious barrier prevents their entry. Meanwhile, Tama dresses Kohina like a doll, and to their surprise, Kohina begins to enjoy her company. However, as time passes, Tama's demands become increasingly ruthless, including a ban on Kohina eating ramen, which infuriates her. Kohina cleverly tricks Tama and manages to defeat her. She then reunites with Kakuri and the others outside, and they all make their way back to their house. Kakuri ventures into a previously abandoned room that had been restored some time ago. Inside, he discovers a mysterious box with a warning label explicitly instructing him not to open it. The warning only serves to intensify his curiosity, compelling him to open the box. To his shock, he undergoes a transformation, changing into a woman. Upon seeing the note that accompanied the box, Kakuri dismissively turns it to ashes, realizing it was merely a prank. As he contemplates how to conceal his newfound form from others, he catches sight of himself in the mirror and his narcissistic side emerges. However, his privacy is quickly invaded when Kohina unintentionally stumbles upon his transformation. Feeling somewhat cute in his new form, he seeks her opinion, only to receive blunt criticism. Kohina advises him to seek the advice of others for a possible solution. However, Kakuri decides against asking Shigaraki, who has a reputation for being a massive pervert. The situation takes a turn for the worse when Inugami and Shigaraki enter the room, and Shigaraki immediately falls head over heels in love with Kakuri's female form. In an effort to win Kakuri's affection, Shigaraki promises to work hard to provide for both of them. Kakuri, desperate for a way to reverse his transformation, seeks their assistance, but Shigaraki suggests that the only solution is a kiss between them, which further infuriates Kakuri. Kakuri continues to search for ways to return to his old self, but after 3 days of fruitless attempts, he is resigned to spending time as a woman. During a bath, Shigaraki confronts him about using female products, initially denying it but eventually admitting that he had been experimenting with them since the day he transformed. The following morning, Kakuri enjoys his time with Shigaraki, who excitedly informs him that he won the lottery and invites him to a hot spring. Kakuri, despite his initial hesitation, falls for Shigaraki's date plan and agrees to go with him. Kohina quickly alerts Kakuri about Shigaraki's plan to spend the lottery money on tickets. But it's too late, Kakuri has already purchased them. As Shigaraki secretly plots a date for them, Kakuri attempts to decline his proposal. However, his plans are thwarted when he discovers that Kohina and Inugami are also heading to the same location. Shigaraki eventually reveals that the hot spring they're going to has the potential to break curses, leaving Kakuri with no option but to join them. Tama, too excited to resist, joins the group upon hearing about the hot springs. Kakuri, eager to return to his normal form, immediately begins asking questions about the hot springs. Shigaraki assures him that they will visit once they've settled into their accommodations. However, Kakuri becomes disappointed when he realizes that Shigaraki doesn't actually know the location of the curse-breaking hot spring. As dinner time approaches, they decide to take a bath, with Shigaraki reluctantly choosing a separate bath. While they're bathing, Inugami unexpectedly enters the bath in his female form, leading to Kakuri and him throwing a tantrum in protest. Although Inugami's presence as a female is more tolerable, Kohina questions why he doesn't continue living in this form. In response, Inugami concocts a fabricated story about numerous men clamoring to marry him, much to everyone's disgust. Meanwhile, Shigaraki is in the men's hot spring, attempting to sneak a peek into the other bath but struggling to get a clear view. As the group playfully teases one another, Shigaraki's curiosity gets the best of him, prompting him to try to climb the wall to catch a glimpse. However, to his disappointment, he discovers that they are all wearing bikinis to deter him from peeping. Despite their efforts to deter Shigaraki, He continues to enjoy looking at their feminine bodies, prompting them to knock him down in frustration. Later, when no one volunteers to help him, Kakuri sets out on his own to search for the elusive hot spring that can cure his curse. However, since he has no idea of its location, Shigaraki catches up with him. During their journey, Kakuri becomes infuriated by Shigaraki treating him as a woman. After a long and exhausting trip, they finally arrive at the hot spring that is supposed to reverse Kakuri's curse. Unfortunately, Kakuri is bitterly disappointed to discover that it doesn't work on older individuals. Upon their return, Shigaraki tries to lift Kakuri's spirits by taking him to an entertainment shop, with Kohina and Inugami secretly following them. As Kakuri struggles with heavy items, Shigaraki offers to assist him, but Kakuri initially declines. Nevertheless, Shigaraki eventually picks him up. Just as they are about to kiss, the condition necessary to break the curse is met, and Kakuri returns to his normal form. During a shopping trip, Kakuri spots his favorite hair dye on sale. Eager to maintain his fox form's elegant appearance, he begins dyeing his fur daily to keep it looking fresh. However, while taking a bath one day, Kakuri is alarmed to notice that his fur is falling out. He becomes increasingly distressed, and Kohina soon discovers his fur scattered all over the place. In his fox form, Kakuri laments that he is going bald and worries about appearing older. Desperate to find a solution, Kakuri searches online but finds no help. Unexpectedly, Inugami walks in and learns of his predicament. To ensure his secret remains safe, Kakuri resorts to knocking out Inugami and burying him. Later, Kohina goes looking for Inugami and stumbles upon Kakuri, who has blood on his hands. Kakuri insists he doesn't know Inugami's whereabouts, and in that moment, Kohina decides to play a joke on him. Kohina mischievously plucks a strand of Kakuri's hair and playfully tells him that his hair has turned white. Kakuri is seething with anger but keeps his frustration to himself. At night, Kakuri struggles to get any sleep due to his mounting stress about going bald. Kohina pays him a visit, only to tease him before darting away. The following morning, his sleepless night takes a toll as he accidentally breaks a pot. When Shigaraki expresses concern, Kakuri loses his temper and knocks him out for making fun of him. He rushes to a shop and purchases as much hair tonic as he can afford. After using it all on himself, Kakuri's hair grows significantly and he becomes a furry sensation. Initially hesitant about trimming his newfound fur, Shigaraki reassures him that he'll look adorable before crafting a nightmare from the love-crashing universe. After a period of recovery and time spent in the hospital, Kakuri returns home stress-free and resumes his usual activity. Inugami, feeling bored, decides to distract Kakuri from his work. Later, he attempts to spend time with a contemplative Kohina. When he confesses his love to her and receives no response, he decides to leave a note before leaving for good. Upon discovering the note, Kakuri quickly realizes that Inugami departed due to a lack of attention. Kakuri dismisses the idea of searching for him, but Kohina briefly considers it before deciding it's not worth the effort. Later, Kakuri stumbles upon Inugami inside the house, waiting for someone to look for him. However, the entire day passes without anyone making an effort to find Inugami, which leads him into a state of depression. At night, while he's lamenting his situation, Kohina approaches him. Just as he's about to cry in her lap, he's greeted by the comical sight of Shigaraki dressed as Kohina. It's revealed that Shigaraki was cosplaying as Kohina, much to Inugami's dismay, causing him to run away in disgust. Kakuri and Kohina find themselves wandering through a forest when they stumble upon a red leaf, which surprises them since it's not the season for leaves to turn red. Their curiosity leads them to discover a maple tree covered in vibrant red leaves. Kohina speculates that there may be a connection between the unusual color and a buried corpse beneath the tree and starts digging. However, Kakuri intervenes, halting her actions. At that moment, a young girl suddenly appears behind them. When they inquire about the peculiar phenomenon, the girl avoids a direct answer and instead presents them with more riddles. Eventually, she admits her ignorance regarding the strange occurrence. Despite their efforts to convince her of Kakuri's spirit nature, she dismisses it, likening him to a robot. Deciding to leave, Kakuri and Kohina bid farewell to the mysterious girl named Kiraha, who chooses to stay by the maple tree. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that Kiraha has been patiently waiting for someone who hasn't returned yet. She asks for Kakuri and Kohina's assistance in locating this person, providing them with a photograph as a clue. In the city, Kakuri deduces that Kiraha is the spirit of the maple tree, explaining the tree's vibrant red leaves. Shigaraki eventually joins them, and upon inquiring about the missing person, he points them in the direction of Tengu, the mountain god. However, they soon discover that Tengu is only interested in young boys. Left with no alternative, Kakuri agrees to transform into a younger boy to gain Tengu's cooperation. Ultimately, it's revealed that the person they've been searching for has long passed away, and Kiraha is merely a spirit tethered to the tree. Upon learning this, Kohina playfully mocks Kakuri for initially believing that Kuraha herself was the spirit of the tree. They then make their way back to Kuraha to share the bittersweet news. She is overcome with grief upon learning of her lover's passing. Kuraha desperately asks if there's any way to bring his spirit back. Shigaraki suggests there might be a way and contacts the underworld to inquire about her lover. However, the underworld promptly hangs up upon hearing his name, as Shigaraki has blackmailed them in the past. With no other options left, Kakuri takes it upon himself to contact the underworld. Through his professionalism and determination, he manages to obtain information about Kuraha's lover. Kakuri reveals to Kuraha that her lover's spirit isn't in the underworld because he chose to be reincarnated. It turns out that the tree Kuraha is bound to is none other than her lover, bringing a touching end to the story of this loving couple. In the dead of night, Inugami's thirst leads him to an unusual bottle containing youth water. Upon drinking it, he undergoes a dramatic transformation, reverting into an infant. Kakuri is taken aback when he discovers what happened, realizing that Inugami consumed the precious youth water he had acquired after much effort. However, Kohina's fear of young children prompts her to instruct Inugami to stay far away from her. As the situation unfolds, Shigaraki enters the scene and informs Inugami that it's time for him to learn some manners. Surprisingly, Shigaraki has also taken a sip of the youth water and has transformed into an 8-year-old boy. Faced with this unusual predicament, Kakuri decides to take on the responsibility of caring for both Inugami and Shigaraki until they revert to their adult forms, as there appears to be no immediate solution to reverse the effects of the youth water. Amidst all this, Shigaraki mentions that he still feels like an adult on the inside, prompting Kakuri to inquire about compensating for the cost of the youth water. Shigaraki decides to go out and flirt with girls the next day, but Kohina stops him. Kakuri begins to explain his strange fetishes in order to persuade Shigaraki that he is incorrect. Shigaraki is then compelled to drink more youth water, which entirely transforms him into a baby. Just then, Kakuri realizes he now needs to care for 2 children and asks Kohina for assistance. Surprisingly, she is terrified of them and refuses to intervene. Kakuri can't sleep at night and is compelled to go out with little Inugami, who insists on playing with him. Kakuri sips the youth water after a long night and transforms into a child. When Kohina enters the room, she is taken aback by the scene. With the situation becoming increasingly complicated, Kohina decides to call Tama for help in raising the children. Since Kakuri's clothing is designed for his adult form, he can't go out in them, so he's reluctantly forced to wear a maid's uniform. As they head out for shopping, Kohina reflects on her feelings, wondering if Kakuri will return to his true form. She misses spending time with him and fears being forgotten. However, as Kakuri notices Kohina's concerns and is about to offer her reassurance, he suddenly reverts back to his normal adult self. In his proper clothing but still in a bizarre situation, he finds himself surrounded by confused and disgusted looks from everyone, bringing yet another quirky adventure to an end. On Christmas Eve, Kohina finds herself wandering the streets and comes across a shop selling delicious ramen. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any money to buy it, so she contemplates stealing it. However, before she can make a decision, a suspicious-looking man approaches her and demands something from her. Kakuri, who has been discreetly following Kohina, witnesses the situation and intervenes, knocking the man away. The man begins to talk about suing Kakuri, but when Kakuri reveals his fox ears and fur, the man becomes more frightened. However, it's not Kakuri's appearance that terrifies him, rather, it's his inability to see ghosts. He explains that he approached Kohina in the hopes of learning what gifts girls desire most. He hasn't had any contact with his daughter for a long time and wishes to surprise her with a thoughtful gift to help mend their strained relationship. At the shop, Kohina admits that she doesn't know what girls typically like as gifts, apart from noodles. The mysterious man becomes increasingly concerned, but Kakuri reassures him that he'll help organize a special party for his daughter. They arrive at the man's home and find his daughter, who is drinking alone as her mother is at work. Kakuri decides to give the man a good luck charm and encourages him to approach his daughter. To everyone's surprise, the man is able to strike up a conversation with his daughter, which marks the beginning of a heartwarming Christmas party. As they celebrate together, the man reveals that he is a ghost who wanted to create one final happy memory before moving on. Later on, the group welcomes the new year with cleaning, eating soba noodles, and visiting a shrine. During this time, Kakuri makes a wish for a long life, one filled with cherished memories spent with Kohina. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you subscribe to and recapped.